Hey guys, my name is Amanda. I'm here at Dogtastic in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I'd like to take a few minutes to go over our training theory, our training approach. And this is the same info that you get at our orientation if you've been in and signed up for our group classes. So I'll summarize our approach as a balanced system of markers and reinforcement applied in a timely and consistent manner. Balance means that you have both positives and negatives. You want that with your verbal markers as well as with your reinforcement. So your markers are words that most people already have established. You're looking at good girl or good boy for the most common positive markers. You could also use a clicker. And then for negatives, most people use no, no ma'am. I've had a few people use excuse me. It doesn't matter what words or even a clicker you use for your markers, whether it's positive or negative. All that matters is that you're consistent with it. So pick something that you can be consistent with. Now, what's going to give our words meaning, whether it happens to be a marker or a command, is when we can consistently and timely follow it with reinforcement. So for reinforcement, we also want to have positives and negatives. For positives, the majority of dogs work really well for treats. Now, there are some dogs that will work great for a toy or a game of fetch or a game of tug. If that's something that you want to use for your positive reinforcement, make sure you have the rules of the game sorted out. So for example, if you're thinking about using fetch as reinforcement for a sit or a down or heel or whatever it may be, you want to make sure that your dog understands to bring the toy back to you and give it to you. And if you're thinking about using tug as reinforcement, you want to make sure that your dog will let go when you ask them to and then wait for you to let them know when they can get their toy back. So treats are going to be the easiest. Then you've got a toy or a game, and then some dogs will work well for petting. That's usually going to be pretty rare. You want to pick the thing that your dog likes best to use for your positive reinforcement, because one option for negatives is going to be withholding the positive. That's why it's so important that we actually have something that our dogs will work for our positive reinforcement. Now, the other option for negatives is going to be using your leash. And we want to take the approach of providing directional guidance. So let's say you were working on sit and your dog decided to kind of wander off and maybe go check out an interesting smell. Are you just going to follow them, or are you going to use your leash to kind of get them settled at your side? So that's the approach we want to take in the very beginning of our leash use. As your dog progresses and their understanding builds and your handling skills improve, you can also layer in some leash work into the basic obedience behaviors. But in the beginning, think about directional guidance with that leash. So for all this to make sense to our dogs, we've got to have good timing and we've got to be consistent. And we're going to use a sequence to hopefully help us maintain those things. That sequence is going to be command, mark, release, reinforce. So let's talk about that release word now. So there are several options you could pick for your release word. Some of the most common ones are free, release, break, all right, all done, finished. I even had a person make up jib jib. It can really be any word you want it to be. Just make sure that you don't pick something that you say frequently. So personally, all right and okay would be really bad choices for me because I say those words all the time. I use free with my own dogs, but pick the word that works for you and be consistent with it, just like we talked about with the markers. Pick it, stick with it, be consistent. So let's look at sit in relation to our sequence. The command is obviously going to be sit, down, come, heel, whatever it may be. So let's look at sit as the example. You'll ask your dog to sit. If they do, you'll mark it. So I would say good girl, and then I would say free, and then with the treat and my body language, I'm actually going to pull my dog off the position and they get to eat the treat when they come to me. So they're not going to get that treat until they've completed the entire behavior. Make sure you're not using your leash to pull them off the position. This is in no way a negative here. So again, it would be sit, good girl, release word, whatever you guys want to use, and then the treat, or if you're going to use a toy, you can use a toy. So command, mark, release, reinforce. If your dog does the whole sequence right, it would be command, positive marker, release word, positive reinforcement. Let's say you ask your dog to sit, and they do, and then they get up. It's going to be sit, no, you have them repeat the behavior. So you go back to the top, command, mark, release, reinforce. And that's the sequence that we're going to be using with all of our basic obedience behaviors. And you can check it out in detail in some of our other videos. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.